Grok TV.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by Grok.com, New Hampshire's conservative website. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone-stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for 2 hours of news and opinion you could only get from Grok.com. GrokTALk.
All right, we're late starting this week, so we'll be running 9:30 to 11:30 this morning. Welcome to GrokTALK, brought to you by Grok.com and the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers, coming to you live from CNHT in Concord, New Hampshire. It's been a busy week. It's been a crazy week. We are still waiting for keys to get into the building for next week when we do our show, but we're going to start now because we already have our first guest. Senator Bob Smith has joined us to talk about the campaign, and we'd like to welcome you to the show, sir.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. That was a fine speech you gave Thursday evening at Kevin Avard's fundraiser. I will get that posted.
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun. It was a good group.
Mm-hmm.
You always feel guilty talking to people that think just like you do because they're frustrated too. They want to make changes and get America back, and you preach to the choir a lot.
That's true. So that's a very good question to start up with, Senator. How do you preach to the not choir? How do you reach the rest of them?
Well, I think you have to start by making people understand that when we stand on principles and what we believe in and what our values are, if you stand on those principles and make it very clear what you stand for and what they stand for on the other side, on the left,
Mm-hmm.
I think people will come forth. We'll start winning elections, and we'll get our country back.
Well, Rush Limbaugh has this saying, conservatism wins every time it's tried, and I'm inclined to agree with that. If we look at the senator who is pale brown rather than bold colors, the reason...
All right, Skip.
The reason he lost in 2012 was because he ran away from what he espoused in 2010. Yeah, I walked the streets in 2010. I had folks who said, me and all my Democrat buddies, too. I want somebody that will protect my rights.
Yeah.
Does that sound like a nearly Democrat that they're talking about? Yeah. No, they wanted a Tea Party candidate. They thought they had one, and they didn't come out for him in 2012.
I agree. I mean, you alluded to basically the Reagan quote, which is no pale pastels but bold colors that make it unmistakably clear what we stand for. That's Ronald Reagan, and that's me. That's what I want to do. I want to make people understand that it's not about any one of us as a candidate. It's not about Brown or Smith or Rubens. It's about the American. It's about what we stand for as Americans on our side, and what the left stands for. Less freedom on the left, more freedom on our side. Less regulation on our side, more regulation on their side. Go down the line. More gun control on their side.
Yeah.
Less gun control, no gun control on our side. Right to life, down the line. All of them.
They want a unitary executive and a administrative state, and they are hell-bent on achieving it, and they're getting there faster than we'd like.
Well, they're winning, and they're winning because I don't think the American people get a chance in election after election to really see the differences.
That's me.
You have to show the differences, who we are and who they are. And we're not doing that when we nominate people who have both a checkered past and a current philosophy of basically being in the middle or not clear on what they stand for. If you're clear on what you stand for, as Reagan said, and you are bold and you point that out, the people will see it, and at least they can make a choice.
Yeah.
They can decide they want less freedom or they want more. They want to raise their kids in freedom or raise it with more government control. But that, if I'm the nominee, they're going to know the difference between Shaheen and me in terms of what that issue is. Whether you want more freedom, okay, I'm your guy. You want what doctor to use, or if you can have your own doctor or your own health insurance policy, or you want more NSA spying. Well, there's your gal. She's right over there.
Right, exactly. And the problem with the other candidate, who I present in sepia tones to indicate my point, is that he's proud of voting for some of the Democrats' worst achievements the last few years, like Dodd-Frank. And I don't know the last time he said that, but he was saying it until at least a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty bizarre, really. And I think that when you seek the nomination of a particular party, you at least ought to vote with him 50% of the time. Mm-hmm. He doesn't even do that. But, you know, look, I mean, you got to be comfortable in your own skin. You got to. If you're running in this is the thing. I'm a platform Republican. I support the Republican platform. Period. I don't make exceptions. And Reagan, think about it. The last time we really had great success and we won was Reagan, when we won on principle.
Yeah.
You knew exactly where the man stood. When he came to work in the morning, if the in basket was empty, he didn't have to go looking around to try to find something to do. He knew what he believed in. And he changed the entire world.
Yeah.
I mean, he had his wife against him, all of his advisors against him when he went to Reykjavik, and he was told to accept Gorbachev's proposal. Mm-hmm. He did not, because he knew that if he could bring Gorbachev around to his view, the world would change. And so he bluffed Gorbachev, and Gorbachev thought we had the capacity, with this missile defense shield system, which we were trying to develop but didn't have, but Gorbachev thought we did. So that's Reagan, and that's where we are. We rise to the challenge. I mean, we're not underachievers here. We are people who believe in something, and we rise to those challenges.
Well, he knew he had the backing of a couple of the top leaders in the world at the time, a pope who knew what he stood for, and a prime minister who knew what she stood for.
Oh, yeah. They're two of the best. Yes, sir.
I have a question for you, and one I think that is becoming very obvious, that there is a large threat to the republic, and that's in the executive branch agencies. We have seen the IRS stonewall Congress's oversight. We have seen them lose documents. We have seen them lose emails in the case of Lois Lerner. We're seeing the same thing with the EPA. We're seeing the same thing with Treasury. We're seeing things with the Department of the Interior. We see it almost in every single instance that any time that Congress is trying to do something, there is almost a willful intent to ignore Congress from the state of the executive branches. And I look at that as the beginning of tyranny, because when the executive branch isn't going to play with Congress, because Congress has given them so much power that now you can't rein them in, that is tyranny, because if they can do that to the Senate, if they can do that to the House, they're certainly doing it to us, and we've seen example after example, the IRS being one. The EPA is also doing that all the time. And
don't forget the devil's spawn of the Dodd-Frank, the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, which now says that it can close down any business, anytime, anywhere, for any reason, and we'll see you in court on our schedule. Meanwhile, you can't do business.
And they're doing it.
And they're unaccountable.
They're actually doing it?
Well, I mean, it's going to happen. I mean, look at that. I thought you were talking about the regulations under Dodd-Frank. Community banks are closing everywhere. That's what I meant.
Well, yes, but they've actually claimed the right to issue cease and desist orders to businesses, to which my answer would be just argue with the other end of this cult, would you?
Yeah. My question was going to be, as senator, what will you do to reestablish the balance between the three branches, and how do you rein in all these agencies, given that the executive branch isn't doing what it's supposed to? Congress refuses to use its own power to do that. The Republicans refuse to use the most powerful tool that in its disposal, which is you either start impeachment of the executive branch or you yank their money. At this point, how do you haul in that runaway train?
Well, that's a long and complicated question, but clearly Congress has oversight responsibility, has funding responsibility, the right to the responsibility to defund or to fund these agencies. And we know historically that when there are weak presidents, Congress tends to rise up and be strong, and when there are strong presidents, Congress tends to fall back. And what we have here, unfortunately, is a case of a president who basically ignores Congress, does whatever he wants to do through executive orders. So I suppose you'd have to say strong in that sense. So strong the wrong way. So what you have to do is, first of all, you put these. Congress does hold the purse strings. The president cannot do anything about that, and that's where they've got to exercise their power. And what they have to do is they've got to come in and they've got to say, okay, we're going to put you at zero-based budget. You're going to have to justify what it is that you're doing, and we're going to start with zero, and we're going to go from there. And if these unconstitutional agencies, such as some of the ones that you were talking about, defund them, and make him come forth and try to defend these agencies without money. You can't.
Who is it?
It's going to be very difficult to do.
Well, so I'm actually very concerned that we've crossed a Rubicon here, and that these agencies cannot be killed, that they will get their printed money somehow. The CFPB, for example, gets its money directly from the Federal Reserve.
Here's why I think you're wrong. You're correct in the sense that it seems like we've crossed the Rubicon, but let's go to the reason for that, Skip. Why have we crossed the Rubicon? Well, because we elect people who continue to allow this to happen. Congress has the purse strings. We don't have Congress men and women who have the courage to stop it. That's what we need. And you're not going to stop it if you elect people who are muddy in the middle and not clear, so that the American people don't know. If you explain to people that these agencies are doing what they're doing, they are unconstitutional, they are making power grabs, they're regulating us and strangling us in business and other things, make that case, make it clear. If you elect her, Senator Shaheen, you're going to get more of that. If you don't like it, then you have to get her out of office. And that's where we win, and that's the only way we win. All
right, we have a caller on the line. Jane Cormier, I believe you said?
Yes, sir.
Hi, Jane. How you doing? You had a question for Senator Smith?
You know what? We're talking. I came in kind of late to your discussion.
So did
we.
I
saw that. Yeah. Let me ask Senator Smith, what do we do about all of the bureaucracy that is now entrenched statewide and federally into our communities on a grassroots level? What can we do to fight, for instance, HUD coming in and changing zoning laws, or EPA changing, regulations within our communities? How do we fight it on that level?
Well, I know I sound like a broken record when I say it, but the people that we elect, let's stick to the federal side for a moment, they are the ones who are allowing this to happen. They are the ones that are giving HUD the authority to do this. Congress is not exercising its responsibility. They need to say, when these votes come up to fund HUD, we need to say this is unconstitutional. It's not within the confines of the Constitution. It's not lawful. Therefore, we're going to defund you. We're not going to give you the money to come in and push regulations upon states, or dangle money in front of states, tempting them to take this program or that program, as we saw with Medicaid expansion. And therefore, if we do that, we then can pull the plug on this stuff and bring us back to a constitutional republic. But it starts with electing the right people to do it. There's no other answer. I mean, you can debate these issues until the cows come home, but if you don't change the people who put these programs in, you're not going to change the country. And you're not going to do that if you nominate people nominate people who run in our party, who, as Senator Brown who is Democrat light, who are just going to say, well, we'll massage this here and there, and we won't win.
Yeah, or put as kindly as possible, he sees the failures that are occurring, doesn't ascribe the cause to government, and thinks we must do something, which is the big failure of Congress overall.
It's because they don't. I don't want to ascribe anything personally to Brown, but it's they don't. When I say they, I mean people that think like that don't see the big picture. You got to get down to the basics here. People in this country, we have a constitutional republic. We elect them. It's, when they get to the point where we don't get a chance to elect people or unelect them, then we got a problem. But we elect them. So therefore, if we elect them, Let's unelect them, and then we make these changes. It's that basic. And I don't think the American people have gotten the connection because we keep nominating people who are whatever, rhinos, moderates, call them what you want, but they should have the same positions. Let me just, you got a minute? Are you
go ahead. We're just going to take a 60-second break when you're done.
I'll quickly, look at you. If you're a Republican, ask yourself, do I support the Republican principles or not? If you do, then be bold about it, as Reagan said. He won on those points. He was a conservative, and everybody thought, oh, he can't win. He can't win. He's never going to win because he's too conservative. Well, he won because he pointed out to the American people, hey, this is America. I'm not going to sit in the White House with a sweater on and freeze to death and turn the thermostat down. We're going to find oil. This is America. Rise to the challenge. That's why we won the Second World War. It's why we went through a depression. It's why we went to the moon. It's why we have a Voyager out there in outer space somewhere in another solar system, because that's who we are. And that's exactly the attitude that we must face. We cannot withdraw in ourselves, and as frankly, honestly, as Senator Rubin says, that let's not strive to overachieve. I'm sorry, that's not who America is. That's not who we are. I mean, I wanted to be a Major League Baseball player. I soon learned I couldn't because I didn't have the ability. I also wanted to get into politics. Well, maybe I had a little better ability there. So that's the greatness of America, is you can live your dream. That's why we had Manifest Destiny. And that's why we went from the colonies to the West and settled America. It's why we went to the moon. It's why we did all these things, because that's who we are. We accept bold challenges and move forward. And that's all we have to do here, is just accept these as challenges and move forward and elect the right people.
All right, we're going to take 60 seconds. We'll be right back with Senator Smith.
She tried to make us believe she was a fiscal conservative, but State Senator Nancy Stiles has been deceiving New Hampshire taxpayers. Like a wolf in sheep's clothing, she claimed to be one of us, pretending to blend in, but all along voting like a liberal Democrat. She voted to raise your gas tax by another 23%, taking a bigger bite out of our wallets every time we're at the pump. And oh, how she drooled at the opportunity to vote to expand Obamacare, which will result in higher taxes and longer wait times in the emergency room. And now the Senate wants to pass a bill to prevent us from criticizing Senator Stiles' vote. Call Senator Stiles at 603-918-0553 and tell her that we're on to her wolf in sheep's clothing routine. Tell her to stop pretending to be a fiscal conservative and start voting like one. Paid for by Citizens for a Strong New Hampshire.
All right, we are back with Senator Bob Smith, running in a Republican primary to challenge Jeanne Shaheen. So that was a good way to go in at break. I don't know where we go from here.
So we were talking about whether you can, in fact, close down these agencies. It reminds me more and more every day of Yes Minister, where the agency is in control, and no matter who you appoint or who you elect, they're just figureheads. And that cannot stand in this constitutional republic.
One of the things that Senator Smith said, I think our first phone interview, was we were talking about term limits. And you had said, if you don't get rid of all the staffers and these bureaucrats that are running around controlling all the people who get elected to office, it's really kind of a waste of time. So I talk about that all the time on Facebook and stuff whenever anybody brings it up. And I go, well, Senator Smith told me, and it's true, the staffers, a lot of these staffers, they're just there managing these candidates.
Well, it's true. They move from one office to the other. When the candidate leaves, they just go to another office. These are career bureaucrats, if you will.
Tied to the money.
Tied to the money. They're bright people, but they're usually the wrong political views. And if you impose term limits on conservatives and not on the left's going to continue to win. We're going to continue to take our own people out of office. I think the only, and I'd have a debate on term limits, but I think the only thing about term limits is that in that situation, you don't want to take the power, you don't want to remove the power from the people. We want participation in the political process. I want people to say, I don't like that guy, or I like that guy, and I want to vote. I want to get involved. Whereas if you take term, he's going to be gone in 6 years or 12 years or 8 years, whatever, and why bother? We'll just let him stay there. And you kind of tune out. And I want people tuned in and on and getting and getting involved in a political process, and you can remove a candidate or a politician anytime you want to.
Here's a question that I should ask all of the candidates, and that is, would you support returning the appointment of senators to state legislators?
Well, that's an interesting question, and one that would change a lot of this money situation in politics. I haven't taken a position on it. I'm going to stay neutral on it right now. But you know what? The founding fathers were right more than they were wrong. We're finding that out, and the purpose of that was to have that control, because it is a United States of America. They would have the control. The legislatures would have the control over who those senators were and who got elected. The other side of it is you could have the same political influence now dropping from the U.S. senators down to the state legislators. You'd have to be careful that the same pressures weren't put on them, which would basically not solve the problem. So,
a little harder to do here in New Hampshire with 400 of them.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, that's true.
And I understand why Steve's asking the question, because from the bottom looking back up, we see that the senators have just become just glorified House reps. Longer terms, a little bit better money.
Right.
The 17th Amendment took away the state's interest, which was supposed to be that braking mechanism on the House of Representatives. So you see things like Obamacare passing because they're just other, all due respect, they're just other politicians versus actually representing the state of these United States.
Right. That's true. On the other side as well, sometimes depending on the committees you represent. For example, I didn't serve as the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, but I was a 12-year member of the Armed Services Committee. You do have issues that come up that go far beyond the borders of New Hampshire.
Correct.
That you have to deal with. National interest, national security.
And that's a given.
Right. So as long as you protect that, but the fact that you're tied to the state is a good thing, because you then you understand that your power base is from the state legislature, which is elected by the people of New Hampshire. So very powerful case. I wouldn't rule it out, to be honest. I'm very much a fundamentalist on the Constitution, or the original founding fathers, and so I like what they wrote. I always get fascinated by the fact that people say, "Well, Madison meant this." Then I read what Madison said. I say, "Here's what he said,"
Yeah, and exactly. And progressives since the end of the 19th century have wanted to do away with upper houses of parliaments. Hitler did so because he didn't want the states of Germany to have any influence. The British progressives are constantly trying to dumb down the House of Lords because they don't want any impediment to mob rule, and essentially that's what's being done here. And with the best will in the world, and you're not one of them, our senators are mostly bought and paid for on a national basis, not on a local basis.
And they are. The thing is, I don't want to say like I'm the only good guy here, but I mean, I passed all that up deliberately. I didn't take a lobbying job. It is a revolving door. It's incestual. It's like the story out there now about the $150 million on breast cancer that Senator Sheen either voted for or promoted. I don't know what the situation is. I'm not making any accusations, but it's just the perception. Her husband is an investor in the company that gets some of the money. I mean, this is, as I say, I don't know what happened. I'm not making any accusations against Senator Shaheen on that. But the point is, it's the perception that's out there that everything just goes around and that everybody's in there for profit, and it's not for, for the cause. But if I could just quickly, on your point about the senators, go back to the Electoral College. Look how you talk about bastardizing something. I mean, the Electoral College, the spirit and intent of the Electoral College has been so 180-degree changed. I mean, if we were to go back to the original intent of that, we'd change all this money in politics would go away, because the electors would go in secretly, cast their votes for two people, one in their state, if they want to, and one outside of their state. They can't vote for two people within their state. It could be anybody. No one knows until you open the ballots on December 12th or whatever the date is in December. Then you know who the president is, and it could be a scientist. It could be anybody it doesn't have to be out there running for president, spending hundreds of millions of dollars. It can be anybody, and that would be if we go back to that system, that would be That would change things dramatically in this country. We get a lot better candidates, too.
And unfortunately, they want to go the other way and make it into a national popular vote.
Exactly, which is wrong. That's not what the founders meant.
At which point you have top-to-bottom mob-rule democracy, and you don't even have any essence of first-past-the-post, head of the largest party, or any of those things like you have in a prime ministership.
Right.
It's a pure mob rule. Skip, sorry.
Well, yeah. I'm sorry.
Well, you're talking about the revolving door. Glenn Reynolds, who runs one of the biggest blog sites in the internet, Instapundit, has a perfect solution to that. If you leave government and you go to the private sector in that revolving door, 50% of anything you earn immediately is taken away by taxes at the federal level, and that will kind of solve. That might stop some of that. I know that we're getting near the end of our segment with
2
you.
minutes.
We appreciate it. Where are you going to be heading after this? Because I think it's a very important thing that you're going to.
We are going to the Benghazi rally. It is very important, and it's a prime example of a real outrage in terms of this administration and the way this issue has been treated or not treated, where people who's lost loved ones, patriotic loved ones who just no answers, and especially those guys that defended the ambassador who were killed with calling for help and got no help, and their families can't even get answers. And the way that's been treated, with basically the administration thumbing their nose at them, is a disgrace. It's a national disgrace, just like the VA scandal is a disgrace, and the NSA spying is a disgrace. And
the border
is another disgrace.
What about the? Are you going to attend the candlelight vigil tonight? I believe I think it's this evening. The Remember Benghazi folks, Lou Milanese and those guys.
I don't know. I know we're going to a rally. I think at 12 o'clock.
Oh, maybe it is noon. Hang on.
Yeah, I think that may be it. I'm not sure.
Well, it goes back to everything that you said. A bureaucracy that openly plots to overcome Congress's oversight is an honest-to-God threat to the Republic. I mean, that sums it up. And I'm hoping that if you get there, I'm hoping that if any of our Republican senators get the seat, that's going to be one of the biggest things to do, is to shrink that up so that they can't do that.
Again, though, and I totally agree, and it's, as you said earlier, Skip, right? Mike, I'm sorry.
I'm Mike. He's Skip.
We all look alike.
We're not that
I was
alike.
at Mike's house the other day, and somebody called me Skip, so it's okay. Got about 20 seconds.
Well,
how to reach you?
All right, Bob Smith for USSenate.com. And if you elect me, you'll know the difference between the two of us, and I will make every effort to do what I can do to make these agencies responsible. I'd like to eliminate a lot of them. Let's put it directly.
Yay!
Oh, I like that.
I bet you can remember which ones you want to eliminate.
Oh,
too.
I can make the list. Unlike the governor, I felt so bad for him.
We'll have to do a different segment for that list. But thank
if
you
I'd
so
been
much for coming
standing
down.
there, I would have said, "Here the other. Here's the other. Here's the other."
Oh,
All right.
I don't think he'd do that again.
All right, so that's the segment. We'll be back with Matt Murphy from Citizens for a Strong New Hampshire, if I can say it. This is GrokTALK, and we'll be right back.
He tried to make us believe he was a fiscal conservative, but State Senator Jeb Bradley has been deceiving New Hampshire taxpayers. Like a wolf in sheep's clothing, he claimed to be one of us, pretending to blend in, but all along voting like a liberal Democrat. And oh, how he drooled at the opportunity to vote to expand Obamacare, which will result in higher taxes and longer wait times in the emergency room. And now, Senator Bradley is leading the charge to try and pass a Senate bill to prevent us from criticizing his vote. Call Senator Bradley at 603-569-4208 and tell him that we're on to his wolf in sheep's clothing routine. Tell him to stop pretending to be a fiscal conservative and start voting like one. Paid for by Citizens for a Strong New Hampshire.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning. The Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning. You're listening to GrokTALK.